Hi, Algebra 2 students. This is Miss Poost, and we're going to finish up the third video in section 3.5. I just want to start off with working on completing the square and what happens if you have imaginary roots. I sort of forgot that, so we'll start there and then move on to learning about vertex form. So I'm on page 193 in your book. And we're going to go ahead and go over that example 4 there and what happens when you have imaginary roots. So let's get started. So we have x squared plus 8x plus 22. And that's equal to 0. So we're going to go ahead and complete the square on this. So half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. We're going to move the 22 over, and then we're going to add 16 here and 16 there. And so we're just going to combine those, and we're going to factor this. So it'll be x plus 4 quantity squared equals a negative 6. And then from there, we can go ahead and square root both sides. So we get x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of a negative 6. And then we're going to move that 4 over. So x equals a negative 4 plus or minus. Now, since we have the square root of 6, we're going to take the I out, the imaginary part out, and then we'll be left with the 6. So these would be our two roots here. So if I were to list them out, the first one would be a negative 4 plus I squared of 6. And then the second one would be a negative 4 minus I squared of 6. So you can either write your answer like this, separating them, or like this right here together. On your test or a quiz, I might ask you to list the two roots. So this is what you would use if you were to list the roots right there. So, all right, we'll move on to how to change a quadratic equation into vertex form. So that's on page 194. So vertex form is a special form that mathematicians use to quickly graph quadratic equations, and this is what it looks like. Y equals A times x minus h quantity squared, and then plus k. Okay, that's what it looks like. Let's write this a little bit better. Okay, so this is vertex form. So there's 3 things that you can get from this equation. You can look at your A value. The A value is going to determine if your graph opens up or down, and how, if you have a vertical compression or a vertical shrink, vertical stretch or vertical shrink, and then also H and K will be your vertex. So A is going to determine if it opens up or down, and also if you have a vertical stretch or shrink. Number 2, H, comma K, that'll be your vertex. And then the line of symmetry is going to be x equals h. So those are the 3 things that we can get just by looking at a quadratic equation in vertex form. So now we're going to move into how to manipulate your quadratic equation to get it to look like this form. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to work out the first example there, x squared plus 6x minus 5. X squared plus 6x minus 5. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to set it equal to y, and then we're going to move some things around here. So y equals. So the first thing we want to do is we want to group the x terms together, and we'll actually complete the square and then get it down into the form. So I'm going to go ahead and group my x terms here. I'm going to leave a space, and then I'm going to have minus 5 here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to just complete the square with the terms that I have in parentheses. So half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to add 9 here. Well, if I add 9 here, I'm also going to have to keep it balanced. So in order to keep it balanced, it has to equal a 0, so I'm going to subtract 9. So if I add something and I subtract the opposite, the equation is still balanced. So y is going to equal, this is going to come out to be x plus 3 quantity squared, and then minus 14. So now, just from looking at it, we can determine the vertex. So the vertex here is going to be, and it's always opposite of what you see in the parentheses here. So it's going to be a negative 3. And then the y value is always going to be what the k value is. And then this is minus 14. So that's how you find the vertex and get it into vertex form. So let's go ahead and try another one here. So that was when a was 1. So I'm going to show you a different method. That might have been a little confusing for you, but I'll show you something else that might be okay. Okay, so let's move on to this example here, 2x squared minus 12x plus 17. Y equals 2x squared minus 12x, and then we're going to add 17. Okay, so another way you could solve this problem and get it into vertex form is to move the 17 over with the y. So you're going to get y minus 17 equals, and then I'm going to group the 2x squared minus 12x. All right, here I'm going to have to get rid of that 2, so I'm going to bring a 2 out, and I'm going to leave a space. So y minus 17 equals 2 parentheses x squared minus 6x, and then I'm going to leave a space. So all I did was divide both of these terms by 2. So when I divide 2x squared by 2, I get x squared, and then I divided the 12 by 2, and I got that negative 6. So now I'm going to complete the square on this, on what's in parentheses here. So I'm going to divide by 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to add 9 here. But I have to be careful because there's a 2 in front. So really, I'm not going to add 9 over here. I'm going to add 2 times 9 to keep it balanced. So this will become y minus 17 plus 2 times 9. Because if I plop something here, I have to notice what's in front of it. And so that'll be 2 times 9, which is 18. So that's going to equal x minus 3 quantity squared. Well, 2 times 9 is 18, minus 17 is 1. So we get y minus 1 equals x minus 3 quantity squared. And so the last thing that you want to do here is to move that 1 over, and then now you have it in vertex form. So we have y equals x minus 3 quantity squared plus 1. And so now it's in vertex form. So the vertex is going to be 3, 1. Okay? So some of you might like this method. It's a little bit easier. So we'll just walk back through it. I moved the 17 over. It became negative. Next, I took out a 2. I completed the square here. I need to keep the equations balanced, so I added a 2 times 9 here, and then I just did my algebra, factored, and then I was able to find the vertex after that. So this is what it looks like. So that's vertex form. So you're like, well, Ms. Poos, what's the big deal about that? Well, we're gonna practice graphing it, and that'll be the lesson, the topic of the lesson next time. So please comment, ask me some questions. I'm here to help you, and we'll pick up and end with graphing in vertex form. Talk to you later.